It's Carolina Tony. Thank you for stopping by my channel. If you're here for the first time, be sure to go down here and click subscribe. After that, ring the bell so you'll be notified next time we put a video out, which is always on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today we are at Cape Canaveral near Titusville, Florida at the Kennedy Space Center. And there are a lot of stuff to see here, and we're going to get with it right after this station identification. In 1968 was when all this stuff got started. Here's a flashback from 1968. This is a Delta rocket. Though the Delta rocket wasn't used for human space travel, it was used to launch things like the Deep Space Probe Pioneer 5. This is the Gemini space capsule. On June the 5th, 1965, Ed White was astronaut inside a capsule like this, and he was the first to crack the hatch and take a spacewalk. Okay, here's a Mercury space capsule on the Atlas rocket. You can see the cutaways inside the module. This is the rocket that was used to propel the Gemini space capsule into orbit. And the Gemini 9 astronaut Gene Cernan spent 3 days inside this aircraft, circling above the Earth. 105 foot tall, 10 foot in diameter, and 213 pounds of thrust. That's one fast rocket. Here are two types of flight right here. This is a full-scale model of the Orion with a blackbird right there boasting about he can fly cheaper. The spaceship that is going to Mars will be the Orion. Its heat shield is 16 foot 6 inches across, where the Apollo was 1210. The Gemini 7.8 and Mercury was 6 foot 2.5 inches. Considerably larger. Okay guys, here is an actual Saturn V rocket that propelled the Apollo capsule to the moon. You know, I've done a lot of videos of aircraft from the Wright brothers on up to what we're flying now. But you know, this has just been just a little over 100 years. And just think about the leaps and bounds that man has made when it comes to air travel. And by 2020, we'll be headed to Mars. After the first stage falls off, then the second stage takes in. Those powerful rockets there. And of this rocket, 95% of it is fuel. So these astronauts are sitting on the top of the world's most powerful bomb. And after second stage runs out of fuel and drops off, then we're left with third stage. And on top of third stage is the service module. It's where the payload would be. And there is this Apollo space capsule sitting right there on the top of all of it. Here's a lunar module. The capsule on the front. Early in the rush to the moon flight, Chaffee, White, and Grissom, also known by millions of Americans as Roger, Ed, and Gus, they lost their lives Friday the 27th January 1969 when the space capsule that they were in caught on fire. And apparently the hatch was blocked and they couldn't get out. And since then, that caused NASA to go into overtime, redesigning a new and improved hatch. And here is a section of Skylab. One thing to remember, there's not an up or down or left or right when you're in space and there's no gravity. Here is an actual Lunar Rover that would have been used on the moon. And a suit that they wore on the moon doing the moonwalk. Apollo 17. This thing had to be really specially built to protect against radiation. Here's a sample of the actual moon rock. Right there. Carolina Tony has touched the moon. Gemini 9 spacewalk. One thing interesting, with all these controls in here, they took 16 men to operate during the Mercury missions. Friendship 7, 1962. None of these are not any more powerful than a wristwatch today. We're in the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Here is a statue of Alan Shepard, first American in space. There are a lot of astronauts. You know, I can't help get a little choked up when I see all this, when I remember of all this has happened during my lifetime, that we as human beings has truly gone where no man has gone before. And because of these men's deeds, we have things that we use today that we could never dreamed about had it not been for space travel. Here are some things that has inspired astronauts. Comic books. space ray guns. Some lunch boxes and toys from the early part of the 20th century. Here is an erector set. I don't know if they still make those anymore. But back when I was a little kid, that was a thing that every little boy wanted for Christmas. There's a picture of John Glenn, and Grissom, and Shepard. And this is a spacesuit that was worn during the first spacewalk.
Took them over a year just to put one together, over 2 years to finish the project. Quite a project, I'll tell you. This one here right beside us has been updated. It can pick up and carry more weight than the other one can. We had to get it ready for that new ending on pedals so that crawler can come underneath of it, pick it up, take it over to the vehicle assembly building, and they're going to load the orbiter and the external fuel tank on top to get ready for launch day. As we go by, look underneath the bottom there, you'll see a 3 square holes. This is where they would, flames and water all shoot out at ignition time when they would take off for space. Housing out the water, and about 10 seconds before ignition, they would release all that water onto the launch platform to suppress the sound, not the heat, the sound. The sound could damage the orbiter, and it would kill you and I if we were out here. Nobody's out here except the astronauts 2 hours before launch. All right.
This is the path that the crawler takes the rocket on out to the launch pad. Really long. It's on gravel.
You'll learn more about the Apollo.
And this is the little bus that would take the astronauts out to the launch pad. And we've seen in many movies. They walk into the back of the launching pad, walking across the catwalk out to the space capsule where you climb in. Look inside the Apollo space capsule. Astronauts all tucked away. Okay, well, I'm going to end my video here. I'm sitting on the Space Shuttle John. Hope you've enjoyed our trip to Kennedy Space Center. But for now, y'all have a good day.